Welcome everybody to the Publishing Performance Show. Today I'm really happy to be joined by Nick Thacker, and in this episode we're going to be talking about how you can become a writer in 1 year. Now Nick is a really prolific writer. He's written loads and loads of books. I don't even know how many he's written. He's written so many books I can't even count them anymore. But in this episode we're going to be talking about how Nick can take your writing progress from being in a full-time job or just writing as a hobby to being a full-time writer in a year, and much, much more. So I hope you enjoy the episode as much as I enjoyed chatting to him. Hi everyone, welcome to the Publishing Performance Show. I'm really happy today to be joined by Nick Thacker, who's a best-selling author in multiple genres and an entrepreneur. So thank you, Nick, for joining the call today.
Well, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following you around the internet for quite a long time now, so it's really happy to have you on the show finally.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, glad to be here, man. It's a cool show. I think it's gonna be fun.
Thank you. Well, let's start just at the beginning of your writing career. So could you tell us a bit about your backgrounds and how you got into writing in the first place?
Oh, I love this story because I'm probably the only, maybe not, I wouldn't say only, but I'm probably one of the few authors who admits that I never wanted to be an author. I hated writing growing up. I remember in English class, we would have to write essays about these books that they made us read, and I hated every single book. I hated writing. And I remember my senior year of high school, I said, I'm done. I'm never going to write anything ever again. Of course, I went to college and had to write more essays, but I hated it all the time. Got into marketing, long story, but ended up in marketing, doing web design, sales, things like that. And at that company, when I was doing marketing, I started writing a book. And the reason I started writing a book was that my granddad had passed away, and he and my dad and I had all kind of swapped novels, Michael Crichton, Dan Brown, that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, this would be kind of a cool Christmas gift for my dad the year, his dad passed away, to give him a book that I wrote and see. And the whole goal was to see if he would notice, right? So he'd unwrap it on Christmas Day, and clearly it's a book. Oh, it's hardcover. And and this happened. I finished the book and gave it to him on Christmas Day, and he unwrapped it. Didn't know what it was. He just saw that it said The Golden Crystal, and he said, "Oh, cool, thanks. Thanks for the book." And then of course my mom said, "Look who wrote it." And so he looked down and saw who wrote it, and he was like, "Oh my God, this is really cool." Book was terrible, of course. It was horrendous. I barely got through it.
Is it still for sale?
I remember it's still for sale. Now I've since rewritten it and re-released it. It's called The Atlantis Stone, which is a little bit, it's got some of that sci-fi kind of fantasy element to it, but it's not sci-fi or fantasy. And so originally the Golden Crystal had too much of a sound, that's like, it just sounds too fantasy or whatever. So I got rid of some of that stuff in the book. It changed the title, cover, all that stuff, re-released it. Yeah. It's a good story. I really do like it. But originally I remember thinking, I got stuck in the middle, and what we call, I now know is called the muddy middle. And I remember stopping, looking at my wife. This is how naive I was, man. I didn't have any idea that there was a whole industry out there about writing. And I remember looking at her and going, I wonder if anyone's ever written a book about like how to do this, how to write a book, how to craft and, outline and all that. I had no idea, of course, then I got on Amazon and found a whole, genre of self-help craft books. And
I'm now competing with Stephen King.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That was, and Stephen King was one of them, on writing. Yeah. And, I remember I bought a stack of these things, and I just plowed through all of them. There was a few that I loved, a few that I didn't like as much, but the point was it got me through the end of that first book. And again, the plan was I liked the writing process. I liked the creativity. I liked being able to do whatever I wanted to do. But I wasn't a writer. I thought of myself as that. I didn't identify as a writer. And based on my experience writing this first book, I thought, yeah, I'm terrible at this. This is awful. So I'm never going to do this again. But what happened was, inevitably, all of those really amazing ideas I thought I'd had, I tried to cram into this first book, and they just didn't all fit. I had research and things that I'm going to make this, relevant, and I just couldn't do it. And so I kept all that stuff aside. I called it my swipe file, because in marketing and advertising, you have a swipe file where you just kind of go back to. I called it my little swipe file, and I used that about 6 months later. And I thought, I kind of want to try this again. Maybe I can like craft a story and use some of the stuff I learned the first time. And dude, that has basically been my process since then. I've written 45 of these things now, and one sweet hockey romance, I might add. That was a dare for my friends, but I've gotten to a point where I think I know what I'm doing, at least a little bit. People seem to like the books, and every time I try to kill a main character, my readers get mad, so I have to keep going. So here we are. I'll never stop.
Yeah, great. So the first books you wrote, so you were working in marketing at the time, and you just wrote them as a
Yep.
hobby. What was
Yeah.
the point when you realized, oh, actually, maybe I could make this a thing, and this could be my thing?
Easily 4 or 5 books into it.
Okay.
So my best-selling book of all time is The Enigma Strain. That is book one of a now 16 book series called the Harvey Bennett Thrillers.
Wow.
And that book, The Enigma Strain, is the third piece of fiction I ever wrote. I mean, it was the third book that I wrote. So it was the third time I'd tried to do this writing thing. I still didn't know what I was doing. Actually, the goal I set for myself in that book was to see if I could have kind of a multiple point of view main character, male, female sort of thing. And of course, they end up getting together. You don't spoil it.
Yeah.
Um, that book. So everybody looks at that book and they, oh man, you got 8,000 reviews on that. A lot of them are 5-star, and it just seems like it's doing really well. Yeah, it is. But the first 12 months of its existence, it made $80, right?
Right.
And so it's just one of these books that, like most of my stuff, I don't have bestsellers. I don't have books that launch to the moon and go to number one on Amazon. I have books that just slowly start earning money over time. And sure, I put advertising dollars behind them and all that, but it took a long time for me to look back and realize, oh shoot, these are actually making a little bit of money because they didn't make very much money. So I didn't really worry about the income. I didn't worry about making profit. I was just doing it because it was something I enjoyed, and it was very much not marketing. It was very much not my job, you know? So as a hobby, I just treated it as a hobby. I didn't have any expectation. Um, it was probably 3 years, maybe 4 years into the whole thing. I started in 2011, published the first book in 2012, I think. And so it was maybe 4 years into it when I started realizing, oh, this actually is making a little bit of cash. And then I started kind of applying the marketing mindset to it a
Mm.
little bit more, thinking, how can I advertise? How can I promote this? How can I get people on a mailing list? Just formalizing a lot of that. And that's when things, again, didn't, I wouldn't say blew up, but that's when things started really trending up. I started to be able to do things, pull some levers, make real change happen. Things that didn't work, I'd stopped doing. Things that worked, I did more of. And I got to the point where I was able to quit my full-time job in 2017, and I never looked back.
Yeah. Amazing. I think the way you've done it is the best because obviously you started writing, you found out you enjoyed it, and you did it anyway. So even if you weren't
Yeah,
earning money, you probably would have been doing it for fun because it was something you enjoyed, and that's probably
precisely. Yeah, I teach authors that all the time. I try to anyway. I try to tell them, like, look, you see us, you see guys that are doing it and that are successful and that do make money doing it. But if you go into it with an expectation that you will have that or you will do exactly what we're doing, you'll probably be disappointed.
yeah.
That doesn't mean it's not possible to be successful. Frankly, I think if you write more books and you just publish as fast as you can, maintaining high quality, it's
Hmm.
not it's not possible to be successful. It's actually probable. I really believe that. I think it's probable that you will find your success. But going into it with an expectation of very clear, this is what it's going to look like, this is what it's going to be like, this is how much I'm going to make, setting yourself up for failure because it is such a weird, fickle industry in general. And, you can't really build a career based on someone else's. It
Yeah.
has to be your own unique thing and your own journey.
Yeah, definitely. That advice is great, not just for authoring, but like for the whole business side of authoring as well, because
Oh,
I
sure. Yeah.
find
Yeah.
you've got to enjoy those other parts. And there's some parts of the business which I don't really enjoy. I don't really love social media, for example, but I
Sure.
find that I enjoy it more when I've got good content to put out and I've got stuff that I'm proud of. So it's kind of doing that work in the first place and enjoying that part of it. The other parts become more enjoyable as a result because
Yeah.
you're
I
not
always tell
talking.
people, yeah, you can't market something that doesn't exist. So,
Mhm.
you're thinking about social media, you're thinking about building a website, all that. Well, if you don't have a book, if you don't have a body of work to promote, there's no point in doing that other stuff. And
Yeah.
so it's always like, hey, the most important thing and the best marketing is release the next book. Just get the next
Hmm.
one out, right?
Yeah, definitely. So you're talking just now about your book, the bestseller. That book you said in the first year only made $80 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What was it that flips that switch from being a book that basically didn't do anything to something that is now making lots of money?
Well, I mean, I got 3 or 4 books into it, so it became a
Right.
series for one. I think if it was a standalone book, like my first 2 books, they still make more than $80, maybe $500 a year,
Yeah.
which isn't much. I mean, that's not a career. That's just cool, right? Right.
Yeah.
So those
Yeah.
first 2 books that are standalone, I think they could have done the same thing had I also gone back and rewritten them like I did and added to the series. But right now they're just book one of nothing. And so the Enigma Strain is book one of, like I said, a now 16, maybe 16. I'm either working on 16 or 17. I don't know. I don't do math. I didn't become a writer to do that. there's a lot of books in the series, and it was probably wasn't until book 3 at the least where I started really seeing some traction, seeing some sales come in. And that was basically my first lesson in giving the readers what they want. And generally speaking, more often than not, they want more books. They don't want a
Hmm.
standalone. They want 3 books or 6 books or 9 books, something in a series that they can latch onto and continue reading. And I captured something in there. There's some essence in the characters that people wanted to read on and see what they did next. I mean, I did as well. I wrote these characters that I thought, hey, I want to see what they do after this. How do they become a team of, partners? And so I just started doing that. I think it was probably book 3, the Ice Chasm, after I released that one and started working on book 4, where I started thinking, oh, okay, cool. This one series is actually making a little bit of money.
Yeah.
But again, I mentioned, it was the Enigma Strain that made me realize there's income potential in all of this, because the Enigma Strain came out, even though it only did $80 in the first 12 months, having the backlist now, having 2 other books raised the entire, the career, right? And it wasn't just financial. It was people were starting to sign to my mailing list. I
Hmm.
offered all 3 of those books for free if you signed up for my list. And so early on, I was able to get a pretty decent sized list, and then I used that list to promote the next books, and it just all snowballed from there.
Yeah, interesting. So it sounds like you did use a lot of your background in marketing to start promoting your books and using that experience.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not very advanced marketing. It
No.
wasn't anything crazy. I wasn't doing anything anyone else. I mean, we all know the stuff now, right? We all know about mailing lists and social media and advertising, which, by the way, are the 3 big buckets that I have. That those are the 3 things all authors should be doing something in.
Hmm.
What the difference was, I came into it with a marketing mindset. I knew that, hey, I've written this book. I've got enough ego to assume that if it's good, if I think I like it, there's probably somebody out there that also likes it.
Mhm.
And even though I'm not approaching this like a job, it is a business, and I realized that. And so I said, well, how do I market this? And for me, the answer was just get people on the mailing list. Just get
Hmm.
them over to my corner of the internet. And the reason, for that was early on. I wasn't trying to make money. I was trying to fight obscurity. Nobody knew who I was. So I was like, I'll give you my books if you just sign up for my list. And then if I, write this other book, I can send that to you, and maybe you'll buy something one day. That was literally the extent of the mindset. But what's funny is that is still the mindset. I mean, that's still what I'm trying to do. Yeah, obviously it's a career, so I need to make sure I'm making some income. But I've got so many more books now. I can pull a bunch of those levers. I can give this away to get people on the list and sell them this thing over here, or book 1, and then I have 7 books. So it just becomes a lot easier to do all that marketing stuff because I have the backlist. Because you can't
Yeah.
market something you don't have.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, that quote you just said, that could be our quote card. You said the aim of the writer at first isn't to make money; it's to fight obscurity.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
such a good concept that I think a lot of people get worried about these like marketing techniques that they say, oh, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? How am I going to do ads? But you don't really need to worry about those things at first. What you should be worrying about is what you can control. Are you writing
Yeah.
books? Are you doing the
Yeah. It's
work?
so true.
Yeah,
It is
got to
so
do.
true. People, authors think, again, they see me or someone else, they're like, oh, you're making X amount of dollars a year. That's where I want to be.
Hmm.
Great. You have to write the books. And
Hmm.
as you're doing that, yeah, you'll start to make more sales, but really you should be focused on grabbing as many eyeballs as you can and just giving them everything that they need to become
Hmm.
a fan of yours, because then and only then will they part with their money for the next book. It's
Yeah,
so hard to advertise something if they've never heard of you before.
yeah,
They don't just need to know it's a good book. They need to know, oh, this is an author who knows what they're doing, because the last thing we want is to buy a book, even if it's $2, and we get halfway through it and we realize the author doesn't know what they're doing,
yeah,
and it's just like, oh, this was a waste of time. I'm not going to finish it. Right. So yeah, you got to have that kind of rapport in the industry. You have to have a little bit of, a clout even. That doesn't mean you have to be super well known and have big branding campaigns. It just means you have to write more books.
hmm,
And when you start to do that and give that book away because they don't know who you are, then over the course of years, people will say, oh, no, I know that name. I'm going to go buy that next book. Or I'm on his list. I heard about that book. I'm going to go grab it. And you
hmm,
start to make real money there. But that
yeah.
that goal has never changed for me. Yeah, I want to make money, but the way to make money is to find more people to give my books to.
Mm, yeah, definitely. Well, everyone's, unless you're already famous or you've got reputation or you're writing about something
Right.
you know a lot about, everyone starts at zero and you've got
Right.
to
Right.
build that reputation. The first person on your mailing list, that's the first step. And
Yeah.
I think J.K. Rowling said when she first started writing, her dream was just to have someone recognize her name when she paid with credit card. So
Yeah.
she's got
Right.
kind of a bit past that now. Um, when you were going from you work a lot with people on helping them to go full time and to do that,
Yeah.
that dream of going making a career out of this. So when you first made that leap and you thought, actually I can make a thing about this, can you think about some of the obstacles and the difficulties you had and how you overcame them? Just a quick shout out to all the romance authors out there. Now, if you're tired of shouting into the void every time you launch a brand new romance book, then let myromancereads.com do the shouting for you. They have a list of over 18,000 romance readers who love getting books when they're on discounts or on the free promotion. And it goes into their inbox every single day. It's got an amazing open rate, and every promotion gets on average over 600 clicks. That's a lot of new readers for your new series of romance books. So head to myromancereads.com where you can sign up today.
Yeah. For becoming a career author in that
Exactly,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I run a company called Book Career in a Year, and it sounds tongue in cheek. It sounds kind of like, oh, that's funny, as if we could do that. Yeah, it's a big, lofty goal, right? Have an entire book career, meaning whatever financial stability, whatever number that is for you, in 12 months. Like that's a lot to think of. But the goal with it is to show authors that, like, look, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done this for 15 years now, something like that. And I know what I'm doing. And I know that if you're writing genre fiction, commercial fiction, whatever you want to call it, so romance, sci-fi, thriller, mystery, that kind of, not literary fiction, not poetry, not memoir, but you're writing stuff that is intended to sell to like a mass audience, it is absolutely possible. And as I said before, if you're doing these things right, it's probable that you'll have a career out of it. And yes, a year is probably fast because you will make mistakes. You should make mistakes. You should fail. You should learn from those mistakes. But if you did everything exactly the way that I'm trying to show people, it's probable that you'll do this very quickly. And so some of those mistakes that we've kind of touched on already, it's like not wanting to write the next book or not writing the next book because you think you're going to chase social media. You're going to go be the next TikTok sensation with your one book. Hey, that's great. If you can maintain writing the next book while you do TikTok, then go do TikTok. But if you don't have the next book and you're not working on the next book or you're not carving out enough hours in the day to write the next book, there's nothing else you should be doing. Get the next book out. The next mistake, again, I touched on this earlier, but I believe authors as a species, we love shiny objects. We have shiny object syndrome. We go look at the next thing like TikTok or whatever it is and say, oh, I need that. That's the secret, right? We see one guy blow up or one girl blow up over here and we're like, oh, that must be the thing that I'm missing. It's not. That's not the thing you're missing. The thing you're missing is write the next book, learn from the mistake, figure out what to do next, figure out what to do better. I've also said this too. Part of that shiny object syndrome is there's three things authors should be doing. That's three. You know, email marketing is probably the first one. So get a list, get people coming to your website to get on your mailing list. I coach people through that all the time because people think, oh, I have a website and somewhere on that website is a subscription box. I'm good. Well, no, you're not, because people may not even know where that box is. They're not going to put their information into a box. You have to be very clear about giving them something. And these days, like mine, it has to be something that's worth giving their email address away, because we all get thousands of emails a day. So give them 3 books, give them 5 books, give them at the very least an entire book written by you, and to incentivize them. But then show us what that looks like. Make it pretty, make it look good. So make it pop up when they get to the website. Don't hide that off in a corner and then say, "Oh, I'm good," because you're not. You're not getting the eyeballs there that you should. That's the first thing. And once you kind of figure that out and get a list going, build the autoresponder sequence, all that stuff that you can get in the weeds, but it's important. Then you can start focusing on building out social media platforms. And that this doesn't have to be, going and making 3 TikTok videos a day and killing yourself. It can be as simple as, what I like to tell people is, you want your social media platforms to not attract people. You're not on social media to attract readers. You're there to be attractive if and when they find your platform. So my Facebook page shows who I am. I'm not out there trying to say, hey, come buy my book. Hey, come over here. Hey, come like this page. I'm just saying, hey, this is me. When I post here, I'm talking about stuff I like, whether it's writing or whiskey or woodworking or hockey, and then people come and they think, oh, this guy is somebody that's like me in certain ways. I like him. I'm going to follow him. And, one day I might even buy his book. So you're looking to be attractive, not attract. And that's the
Mm.
second bucket. The third one is advertising, which we don't have to get into because it's just a whole other thing as well. But if you're an author with a backlist, you've got some books out, you've got something in series, especially, it's time to start thinking about advertising. It doesn't have to be much, but it's time to start thinking about how can you buy eyeballs to get onto your work. Assuming everything's set up really well, Amazon's pretty
Yep.
good about converting people. So you can send people to Amazon,
Mhm.
have a good cover, have a good description, have a good blurb, pricing, all that stuff matters. But, you can literally go on Facebook and buy people to go over to Amazon and potentially buy your books. And that's what we're
Yep.
after with advertising.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So obviously the main thing is what you're saying is the book's got to be written. You got to have that initial work there, but the main thing that's going to get you from being, just a writer who's doing it in their spare time to being able to go full time is to start to understand those different marketing strategies that you can use, starting with getting your mailing list done. And this is something we hear like over and over again in these sessions. I think for some people, if they're non-fiction writers especially, it's quite easy to create a giveaway to get people to sign up for your mailing list, but it's a bit more difficult with the fiction writers. So what are some of the tips you have for what fiction writers can give away in order to get that first step of really getting the mailing list started?
Yeah, so I think you're thinking very creatively. Like nonfiction, there are a lot of easy, creative things we can do. So if you're writing, a history book, for example, you can find, little fake artifacts and trinkets of that time period and
Mm-hmm.
give those away. Sure, absolutely. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. Like with fiction, we're writing books. So the first thing you should think of giving away is a book.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when I first started, I had 3 books out when I started my mailing list before that, but I wasn't really focused on making this a career. As I said, I just sort of treated it as a hobby until I had at least 3 books. But I remember I had 3 books out. They were the only books I'd ever written. I didn't have short stories. I didn't have any chapters. I just had books. And those were the same 3 books that I gave away on my mailing list.
Yeah.
And so authors hear that and they think, well, I mean, gosh, you're getting people on your mailing list. You're just giving them the book. And then you don't have anything to sell them? No, I don't. I gave them the books because for me, getting them on the list was way more important, especially early on.
Yeah.
That's still the case, but now I've got 43 other books I can sell them, so I don't have to
Yeah.
worry about giving those 3 away.
Also, they might
So
leave you
don't
a
overthink
review
it.
as well on Amazon for that book.
Well, that's the thing, and that's part of my autoresponder sequence is like, yeah, hey, I gave you the book. The second day they get an email, did you get the book? And then 3 days later they get one that says, hope you're enjoying the book. And then eventually they get an email that says, would you review the book? I mean, by now,
Mhm.
and by the way, I've got little stories in each of those emails, so it's not just that, boring
Yeah.
question. But that's the call to action in each of those emails. And by the time they get the review question, they should know a little bit about who I am. They've probably read some of it if they're interested. I get a lot of reviews from that. People go and they click through and they check out Amazon, and then that even juices Amazon's algorithm to say, oh, people are landing on this guy's book. They're leaving a review. Let's show his other books to them, and so that's how Amazon works. I mean, it's all just this AI machine learning algorithm that
Yep.
shows people stuff based on what they've clicked and purchased and reviewed before.
Mhm.
So back to your question. Yeah, don't overthink it. I mean, I start with a book. If you only have one book, give the whole book away. If you're writing the book, the first book you've ever written, give away a chapter, give away whatever you can. But think in terms of, you're not just doing the bare minimum to get people to email to subscribe. You need to think in terms of what is the most obvious thing I can give away that's a no-brainer, that is the easiest yes I'm going to get from these people.
Yeah.
For me, you come to my website, hey, here's 3 full-length thrillers. Cool. If you like thrillers, you're going to say yes to that. If you don't even know who I am, you're going to say yes to that because it's 3 books for the small price of an email address. And they know they can always unsubscribe later, right? So just make it, clear that you're giving away something that is so obviously a yes that there's no question in their mind they're going to subscribe.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really important point you made about sending people back to Amazon as well to leave the review, to make the purchases, because Amazon changed their algorithm quite recently within this year. And it did always do this before, but now it's placing more focus on it, on previous purchasing behavior and the way that you interact with the website. So it was always a factor that your previous purchases were going to, tell Amazon what to show you when you next do a search, but they're now placing even more importance on that. So, your previous purchases make quite a big impact on what Amazon's going to show you as a customer. And then that obviously
Right.
has impact on what you're going to buy next. Um,
Right.
that's great tips you just gave. One of the things I struggled with the most, going from like a job where you're told what to do and there's someone asking you why you haven't done what you said you were going to do, to working for yourself and making sure you're keeping on track and being productive all the time, is being productive and sticking to goals. So when you started out, did you have any particular problems that you faced? And also, how did you make sure you were staying productive and, treating it more like a business rather than just a hobby? Just a quick shout out to all the romance authors out there. Now, if you're tired of shouting into the void every time you launch a brand new romance book, then let myromancereads.com do the shouting for you. They have a list of over 18,000 romance readers who love getting books when they're on discounts or on the free promotion. And it goes into their inbox every single day. It's got an amazing open rate, and every promotion gets on average over 600 clicks. That's a lot of new readers for your new series of romance books. So head to myromancereads.com where you can sign up today.
I think early on, I didn't come into it with expectations. I didn't know if I could even finish a book. Certainly wasn't worried about how well I wrote. I just wanted to get the words down. Um, and I was shooting for the 100 to 100,000 word range, 100,000 to 110,000 word range, because that's, I believed, what most of the action adventure thrillers in my genre were set at. So that was literally my goal, was finish a book, and it's this long. I did have a deadline, which was Christmas. Obviously I wanted to give this to my dad for Christmas, so that was my hard deadline. Um, and I'm not a deadline guy. It's funny, I have to have them, or I won't do any work, but I
Mm-hmm.
always blow past them. So I have to set this like weird squishy deadline range of like, okay, well, I'm going to work on this, and I want it done by September, and then inevitably it'll be done in October. But it'll get done. If I don't have the deadline, then the book never gets written. So I didn't know that about myself early on. All I did was I just said, well, I'm going to write when I have the time. I opened my laptop on the plane. My wife and I were visiting Colorado, where we eventually moved. And that was when I first started writing the first book. I said, I have this idea. I'm going to try this. I like writing on airplanes. I like working on airplanes. And so I opened the computer, started writing, wrote a couple chapters. It was terrible. But I started that learning process of, how long is a chapter for me? How quickly can I write one? And it's this game we play of, how to hack our own productivity, and you can read all the books, you can get all the apps. I had all the writing tools. I remember getting Scrivener, which is what I still use. I remember using Microsoft Word, which I hated with a passion. I remember that I can't even remember. There's like 3 or 4 other ones that I tried out because I loved playing with apps and all that. And I eventually
Yeah.
found Scrivener it gelled with my mind and the way I could, kind of focus. Um, I eventually learned that if I sat down and wrote for a solid hour, I could get a good chapter done. That was at the time, again, not a good writer, but it was well edited. It was self-edited, but it was well edited and it was pretty clean. And I learned things like that. And so I knew after a while that, hey, I can't really do the writing at work. I can't really hide under the cubicle and type for an hour during lunch. That's just not where I work best, or work at all. Um, I couldn't split focus. I learned that I couldn't, and this is still true today. I can't go from, like, for example, this interview to writing, like there has to be, unfortunately, at least a 15-minute gap of, like, mindset shifting and, checking emails. I just can't do it. And vice versa. I can't come out of writing and then immediately be in, like, email brain.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can, and I'm jealous of them. Some people can also fall asleep at night right away, but hey, I can't do it. So, I don't know that I'm answering your question other than saying, hey, this is what happened with me. Was I started doing this, and I just started paying attention to my own habits, my own desires, my own needs. Yes, we can set new habits. Yes, we can change who we are over a long period of time. But what's more important, or I should say important before you get to any of that, is to figure out what our own personality and habits are. It's
Mm-hmm.
one thing to read On Writing by Stephen King and go, oh, this is what he does every day, so I'm going to do that. Well, you're not Stephen King. And so you should at least know, when I read On Writing, I had already started writing my book. So I was like, hey, that's not a process that I think could work for me. Maybe I'll try it, but that doesn't seem like what I want to do. I don't like typewriters. I don't want to lock myself in a closet. I don't want to not talk to my family until I get the writing done. Whatever. I don't want to be on meth. heroin or
Yeah.
whatever.
Again.
So like whatever it is, you should know enough about yourself to know, hey, I don't think that's going to work. But most authors, I wouldn't say most. There's authors I talk to that don't do that. They don't realize that they're a human, right? They have
Hmm.
habits already. They've got ingrained beliefs already, and they're using those, whether they believe it or not, to write and to be productive. So you really have to self-analyze better, and you really have to know, this is how I work best. This is when I work best. This is when my family's here and I like my family. I want to be around them. So I'm not going to
Hmm.
just use that time just because it's my most creative time. Doesn't mean I'm going to, shut them all out and go hide in the basement and work. You can be creative at another time. You can figure that. So just knowing that stuff about yourself is really, really crucial, because
Yeah.
then you can apply something like James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, to your own productivity, and make really good changes that, that are for the best for you.
Mm. I find you can be unproductive by reading productivity books.
Oh my gosh,
So
dude, ain't that the truth? And I'm a productivity guru. I mean, I have all the apps, all the tools. I've read all the books. I know all the stuff, but do I do all of it? Absolutely not. And that's what
no.
kills me. I do have this belief that reading without action is entertainment.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter what it
definitely.
is. If you're reading history without taking action on that, you're not teaching history somewhere. It's just entertainment. And there's nothing wrong with entertainment. But when it
Hmm.
comes to something like productivity, if you're reading all these books about productivity and you're not doing anything, you're not implementing them, you're not practicing and doing the hard work of self-reflection, it's just entertainment.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The one thing that I've found that works best for me, and it's not going to be for everyone, but it's something called the Entrepreneur Operating System. It's a
Oh
book
yeah,
called
EOS. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, EOS. Yeah, it's a book called Traction. It's amazing. It's quite like it's
Gino Wickman, I believe.
Gino Wickman. Yeah, it's a really good book,
Yeah.
and it's not very authory. It's not very arty. It is quite like set your KPIs and stick to it. But I found
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
best way to like reflect on your business, and if you are doing that, you know, if you are treating this and you want to become a full-time writer in a year, these are the sort of things you need to be thinking about, I think, because that's when you
Yeah,
can
I'll
say,
throw one in too. I think EOS for me goes hand in hand with one called the 12-week year.
"Oh, that's a great book." Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is just really, really cool. I love the concept of 12 weeks. And if you do the math, there's an extra week at the end of every quarter for like catching up and finalizing and then setting the new goals. But it's a great way to kind of approach, hey, here's what I'm going to get done in a year. And then, the argument there is that you can probably get a lot of that done in just 12 weeks.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that basically 12-week year plus EOS is my entire productivity system. So
There you
good
go. Yeah.
recommendations.
There you go.
Yeah. Did you find you needed any mindset shift in order when you started going full time? Was there any things you thought maybe you're struggling with self doubt, or there was things that weren't going exactly the way you wanted it to?
Oh my God. Every day, man, every day. That's still where so I have anxiety. I'm an anxious person. I get really anxious, and over the course of many, many, many hours in therapy and learning and self-reflection, all that, I know my triggers, and so I'm healthy, but I'm still anxious, right? And so in unhealth, I lean toward being anxious, freaking out about everything, extrapolating this number to mean, oh, we're going to be dead and poor on the street, in a month. Um, all the fear and worry that comes with that. So yeah, every single day is a battle in my own head of mindset shift of,
Hmm.
hey, you got here and things aren't really that different than they have been. So you're probably going to be fine next month.
Yeah.
Just that self-talk, right? One of the big mindset shifts I had early on was in realizing this is a business, whether we like it or not. What we're doing by putting a book out into the world is saying, hey, here's a tiny itty bitty, almost insignificant business, but it is a business.
Hmm.
We are putting it for sale. That implies, again, it's good enough that other people might like it. And even if you pretend like you don't, you want somebody to buy that.
Hmm.
There's so many authors that are like, well, I just write for myself. And I'm like, great. Why are your books on Amazon? Why are they
Yeah.
for sale at Barnes and Noble? Why do you have a website? Like what, if they're for yourself, there's nothing wrong with that, but then don't put them online. So the reason I'm getting to that mindset shift, talking about mindset shift here, is these authors are lying to themselves. They're trying to let themselves off the hook with this. And I know I'm being a little harsh here, but like it's a mindset shift that I had to go through as well. Oh, I'm just writing for myself. I just want to write what I want to write. Great. Then why is it for sale? You're just letting yourself off the hook. You're saying, oh, I don't need to learn marketing. I don't need to learn advertising. I don't need to be a brand. I don't need to focus on, I don't need to do any of this, right? Because I'm just writing for myself. Right. So that's a big mindset shift is no, you're not. You're writing for readers. You're writing for people to come find your book and enjoy your book and become your fan. And that all sounds great. Guess how they have to do that? The mechanism for doing that is capitalism. It's buying the book. or it's signing up for your mailing list. It's getting the book from you somehow. So get over it. That's the mindset shift. Get over that whole, yeah, we're in an artsy, creative, cottage industry almost, of authors and creatives. We still have to sell our work. We still got to put food on the table. And if you're
Yeah.
okay with that, then the mindset shift is just getting over the hump of, hey, you're a creative. You can still be an artist, but you also get to be a businessman or woman, and you get to make these decisions as a business. And when you start doing that, and only when you start doing that, will you start to see some of this success that you pretend like you don't want.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. It's basically the if I could summarize this whole podcast that I do into one sentence, that's kind of,
I thought that might resonate. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's all about, you've got to think about this as a business. You're listening to this because you want to sell more books. So if you want to sell more books, you've got to treat it like a business. Only very, very lucky authors can just be complete artists and hope to make money during their life in that way. Like you got to work.
Well, and guess what? Those authors, there's a business there as well, and they may not be the one running the business components, but they're still a business. There's no way to buy a book without buying a book. Like I cannot go get Stephen King's next book without getting his book. He's not going to just give it to me, right? He's not going to print it out and hand it to me. So yeah, absolutely, man.
He probably even charges his wife to read the book. I imagine.
Probably would. I would. Hey, if I can't even get her to buy it, why do I expect anybody else to buy it, right?
Yeah, and also you get another review out of it as well.
That's right.
Now, so basically the reason people would have picked that up. Sorry, I'll start again. So the reason people would have listened to this podcast in the first place was because we said, how can you become a writer in a year and turn it into a full-time career? So you've got your program, which is about just that. It's about becoming a full-time writer, do it in a year. So could you let's go through just roughly the step-by-step that you would need to go through in order to get to that year. And then we can talk about some of the applications of that you'd put in real life.
Yeah, sure. There is a lot. There's a lot of work, but there's some core components. There's basics here. So if I do any coaching with an author, these are the things that I'm going to focus on first and foremost. And day one, week one is going to be, do you know how to write a book? Do you have a book already? Is it good? Is it good enough to sell? If not, are you taking the right steps to learn? There's ways to learn craft, and there's ways to learn structure and pacing and tension. And you need to know your genre, but that's the first kind of big question mark. Many authors that I coach are already over that hurdle. They know they've already written books. A lot of them have written a lot of books. They're just like, I don't understand why they're not selling better. Right. So that's usually something that they've already answered. They know how to write a book. Then step two, I say, well, are you writing the next book? Because no matter what we do here, we need to have something new and fresh to market at the end of this. Right. And that's the next book. So once we kind of answer the writing question, we get into the marketing stuff. We get into when somebody goes online to find out who you are. Do you have a website? Do you have a place for them to go? And I call this the home base on the internet. Like it's something you own. It's not a WordPress.org, I think is the website, it's or Wix, it's not a Squarespace site. It's something you own, that you host, that you pay for. But the reason for that is that they can't pull the rug out from under you. If anyone's following the WordPress stuff right now with Matt Mullenweg, it's crazy. Yeah. He has full control over everyone's WordPress.org sites. I'm on WordPress, but I use self-hosted. I manage it myself. He can't touch it, basically. The point is you have to own it. You cannot build a home base on, or by my definition, a home base is not something that's built on rented land. So it's not Facebook page. It's not a Twitter profile. It's not an Amazon, author page. Those are great. Those are called outposts, and those all point back to the website. But the website is the home base. And so we talk about that. We talk about how to build that, what you need. Again, I don't like overthinking things. So I'm like, hey, bare minimum, just have one page. Here's what you put on it. Got to have that pop up with the book that shows the freebie offer you're giving them, whatever. And then we talk about the outposts and stuff that gets into social media, that gets into one of my big buckets, which is you need to have something. You need to find out where your readers are. If you're nonfiction, they might be LinkedIn. If you're writing business stuff, if you're a Twitter, it might be nonfiction. If you're Twitter, if you're writing fiction, it's probably Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, one of those. Pick a place, pick a platform. Doesn't have to be more than one at first, but then start being attractive, right? You're not trying to go there to attract. You're not going to be on there every single day, posting, tweeting, here's a picture of my dog, go buy my book. You're just trying to be attractive and build that outpost to be attractive for people. This shows your personality. This shows your brand, which is kind of the next thing we talk about at that phase. Like, hey, branding is all you are branding, whether you realize it or not. So you might as well put in at least an hour or two of work on what does it look like? What when I put my name out there in a logo format, what does that look like? Is it consistent? What's the color scheme that I want to use when I want to say this is my brand? I used to make these little pretty graphics with a quote on them from a book, and I would just use whatever was pretty in the app. I was like, oh, there's a mountain, and then there's some like fog, and then like some serif text. None of it was branded, right? It was cool and it was great, and it was technically posting on social media, but it wasn't my brand. And so I've had to
Yeah.
kind of go back and say, well, whenever I get on TikTok and post something, I want to have my colors, my brand show up. So that's important. It doesn't take a lot of work, but again, you got to think about it. And then, so at that point, they're writing a book. They've got a website. They've started to play around with some social media stuff. Obviously, the email that's part of the website. That's kind of in that phase of like when you put a website up, you got to have a mailing list. And so we get talk about the platform you want to use and having an autoresponder sequence. And then we start talking about advertising because that's again, it's a huge, huge, huge component, especially now that we have a lot more authors coming online, selling their books. We need to make sure that we can carve out a niche and get those eyeballs over to where we want them, whether it's our website or Amazon. And from there, it's really just a matter of where that particular author is. Do you want to advertise on Facebook or Amazon or both? Do you have a budget to do both right away? Do you want to try doing BookBub ads? Like there's all sorts of things that we can do that just depend on the genre, the style of the book, who the author is, their personality. So it is a lot of, courses, but it's also coaching, right? It's also kind of done with you sort of format. I just had a lunch meeting with a lady yesterday who's an accomplished author, knows what she's doing, just needs help kind of focusing, like homing in on what to do. She's like, I know all the stuff that I could do. I've heard of it all. I've even played with some of it. I just, obviously need to focus on something to really make it work, which she's correct about. She's like, I just don't know which one to focus on. So then I can come alongside and say, hey, based on what I'm seeing, I would do this next. And for her, it was get that pop up on your website with a freebie offer that's so obvious and so good they can't refuse, they can't say no. And then let's start advertising that. So on Facebook, we're going to run ads to that website to get people on the mailing list, and specifically a landing page that we're going to build. So just things like that. And that's the kind of stuff that I like to do. I've talked about a lot of stuff. I'll shut up. But basically, Book Career in a Year as a company is just all of my nonfiction. So it's books, courses, coaching, teaching. There's a blog. There's free stuff. There's podcasts. So it's everything that I'm doing to help authors get to the next level. So it's not just one course. There's courses there. Frankly, we don't even have the full course out yet. The idea is we're building all these little mini courses first. They're full-length courses, but they're inexpensive. You can buy them a la carte. And then eventually we'll have a course of courses called Book Career in a Year, which is what I was talking about.
Brilliant. For the people that want to work with you, do you have any expectation about where they'd be with their book? Or is it for people who are thinking, you know what, I want to write a book? Or is it more, you've got your book, let's get it rolling?
I can help either author. I often help authors that have some experience, that have a book at least, if not 3, 4, 5, 6 books out already. That's not a preference. That's just what, I go to conferences, and a lot of times the appointments I get or the contacts I get are authors who already have a book out. They're just like, what do I do next? So for those first-time authors, like I said, I do love to coach them as well, because then the conversation is much more around, how do you want to publish this? How do you want to get this out into the world? There's a lot of authors that still believe traditional publishing is the only way to publish. And I'm not here to tell them that traditional is bad. I've made a lot of success in the indie world, right? But I own a publishing company now. And so, it's important to realize, like, hey, there's a different route here. Like, if you want to do a lot of this yourself or hire out some of the stuff, but maintain full control, indie publishing might be the way to go. And so that's kind of how those coaching sessions would go. And then I can kind of come alongside, like, oh, well, you still want to go that route? Cool. Let's talk about how to get an agent. Let's talk about querying. Let's talk about making sure this book is really in shape for the New York publishing, houses, because that's really what they're after in that case.
Yeah. Yeah. I've absolutely loved this conversation. It's really nice to have such an honest conversation about like the problems and some of the successes you've had. I really appreciate your time here.
Sure. Yeah.
So, thank you so much. So if people want to get in contact with you, that's bookcareerinayear.com is the best place to find you.
Bookcareerinayear.com. Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. So head there and find loads of different courses all about the different aspects about writing your book. It's really good. Thank you very much. So just before we go, I've got one final question, which is, what's a book that you recommend everyone should be reading at the moment?
Well, so I'm going to give you two. One's fiction,
Great.
one's nonfiction. One is, I guess they're both technically traditionally published, but one is really helpful for indie authors. It's called Techniques of the Selling Writer by Dwight Swain. It's an old book. He's dead. He's a little out of date in terms of his beliefs, I think. It's probably the polite way, PC way of saying it. But that doesn't come through in the book very much. I think that's just if you know anything about him. But the book is great. He actually taught Jack Bickham, who wrote Scene and Structure. I think it was Scene and Structure. And he learned from Dwight Swain. But Dwight Swain is the OG, right? He's the original gangster for scenes and sequels and how to craft fiction that sells, like what we're talking about, commercial fiction, no matter the genre. And so, he gets down into the granular detail of talking about how a sentence is structured. I see the car out the window as I look out, right? He's like, no, that's not linear. That's not chronological. Like, you look out the window and then you see the car, so he just he has a great way of helping frame, he's not a flowery prose guy. Let's just say that. He's not a literary fiction guy. He's a pulp fiction author, or was. But I found that really, really, really helpful. It was engaging, but it was also very just do this, and I needed that early on. But I still read it. I've got it on my shelf. I still read it. I try to read it once a year. Just very, very apropos, very helpful, good wisdom for crafting fiction. The second one is fiction. I also have this one on my shelf. I have a first edition signed copy I'm really proud of. It's in plastic wrap and all that. But the book is called Amazonia by James Rollins.
Right.
And if anyone's ever read my book, The Amazon Code, it's book 2 in the Harvey Bennett series. I put in kind of an homage, like a foreword in there to James Rollins. I'm sure he's never read it, but I always said when I wrote, I want to write a book like James Rollins. I want it to feel like you're reading a James Rollins novel. He's the guy that I tried to write like. I've met him a couple times. He's a good guy who crafts the best thrillers on the market, in my opinion, as far as the action adventure style. And Amazonia is it's a romp. I mean, it's just fun. It's got a little bit of that kind of fantasy element to it, but not enough that it's a fantasy book. But it's just a really, really well crafted, well done thriller. I like to read that one once a year too, if I can. But the problem is I know the ending now, so it gets
yeah.
a little hard. But,
and if you read everything once a year, then you'll never read anything new.
I'll never read anything new, and that's the problem too. Isn't that the irony of it? I became a writer because I loved to read. That was it, and now I'm like, oh, I don't have any time to read. Because if I have time to read, I would feel guilty. I'm like, well, I should be writing, I should be working.
Yeah, I think everyone feels like that. Well, thank you so much. There's been really good recommendations as well. There's 2 new books I don't know, so thank you for that. And I really appreciate your chat.
Yeah,
I think people are going to get a lot out of it, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Well, thanks a lot. I'm glad to be here, and hope it was helpful.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance podcast. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, let me tell you about Publishing Performance, the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales, but I'm not really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books. And if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximize your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalized ad account manager to create your ad campaigns, to choose your best keywords, and to make adjustments in real time. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure that your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. Just go to publishingperformance.com to get started with Amazon ads for just $1. Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance Show. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I absolutely love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, I want to tell you about our Publishing Performance Starter Packs. These are curated episodes and collections organised by topic that makes it super easy to find the exact content you're looking for. So whether you're wanting to deep dive into marketing strategies, explore productivity techniques, or focus on any specific area of publishing, we've organised our episodes into targeted playlists just for you. And you can find these all at teddyagsmith.com. And also, whilst you're here, let me tell you about Publishing Performance. It's the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales but aren't really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books, and if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximise your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalised ad account manager to create your ad campaigns for you, to choose your best keywords and to make adjustments in real time and to optimise them over time to save you money and to make more sales. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. You can get started with Amazon ads for free for 30 days at publishingperformance.com, and there's a link in the show notes to get that free 30 days trial. Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance Show. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I absolutely love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, I want to tell you about our Publishing Performance Starter Packs. These are curated episodes and collections organised by topic that makes it super easy to find the exact content you're looking for. So whether you're wanting to deep dive into marketing strategies, explore productivity techniques, or focus on any specific area of publishing, we've organised our episodes into targeted playlists just for you. And you can find these all at teddyagsmith.com. And also, whilst you're here, let me tell you about Publishing Performance. It's the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales but aren't really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books, and if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximise your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalised ad account manager to create your ad campaigns for you, to choose your best keywords and to make adjustments in real time and to optimise them over time to save you money and to make more sales. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. You can get started with Amazon ads for free for 30 days at publishingperformance.com, and there's a link in the show notes to get that free 30 days trial.